Hello, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm Weston Hasty, YouTuber, streamer, poet, coffee addict, dungeon master, vampire sandwich, and of course, your host, Weston Hasty. Welcome to my podcast. It's been some time. It's been a while. However, if you're not the type of person to keep up with my podcasts on a every day or every week basis, whenever I decide to release these things, then you may not have noticed. But if you have noticed the absence in podcast releases lately, I appreciate you. I'm glad you took notice. Welcome to a Hasty Podcast, the podcast where we talk about vaguely just whatever happens to come up in my life that I want to talk about, but also sometimes focused around sort of video games. It's kind of a big thing that I do in general is play the video games. I have a video game, or I guess you wouldn't say that. I have a gaming YouTube channel called Magic Man Mo on YouTube. That's all one word, Magic Man Mo. You can find it at youtube.com/Magic Man Mo. And I have a gaming channel there where I make videos and I stream. And gaming is a very big part of my life. And we often talk about that here on the podcast. I've been away for some time, and you've missed a lot in my life. We were trying to get back into daily podcast episodes where I was just keeping you all up to date with the goings about in my life and what I'm up to and that kind of thing. And we've missed so much since the last episode. I've been to like 2 different concerts. I've gone to an amusement park. My life has been turned forwards and backwards and upside down with mental health nonsense that we're not going to get into. The point that I'm getting is that we've had our ups and we've had some very low lows. And yes, we've missed a lot. But instead of dwelling too long on the past, we're going to try to continue to trudge forward. Needless to say, just to catch you up to speed, before the mask mandate came back in my state, I was living it up a little bit in every possible chance that I could, going out. And I say mask mandate, like the mask mandate / shutdown. A lot of things I had to like scale back again from the COVID stuff, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows we're well over a year and a half into COVID. So I don't need to explain to all of you how things change on a dime. But for a while there, it was it had kind of let up. And I was trying to get out as much as I could to take advantage of that because it had been so long and I was out and about and having a good time. Where did I go? I went to 2 different concerts. There was a Warrant concert I went to that I'd never even heard of Warrant. Apparently they're more famous than I gave them credit for. I went to that. My hometown had this like festival that I went to, and there was music there as well. I don't even remember who all played. There were a few different bands now. Went to some stuff like that. I went to like Indiana Beach, which is an amusement park in Indiana, as you might imagine, that kind of thing. Enjoying the smaller crowds in the area and that kind of thing, getting out, enjoying myself, getting some sun. Much more recently, actually, I went out on a bit of a golfing trip and went golfing for a round of golf and got myself horribly sunburned. And I feel like in the last few months, since the last episode of this podcast aired, I have been getting a lot more outdoors time than usual. Or at least trying to, in terms of being out and about. Actually, it's kind of a shame. You're going to think this is related. I caught a little bit of a cold. I've got a small cold. Don't freak out. Don't panic. It's just my sinuses. I caught this small little cold, and I was kind of annoyed by this. This was like yesterday. I was thinking about this, where like it's just getting a little bit of a sniffle. It's already going away. It'll be gone by tomorrow. But I'm like, this is the most sick I've been in a year and a half. I've got a small sinus cold, which I'm not a person that gets sick anyway. But I was thinking about it. And you know, the last year and a half has been the worst time to catch any sort of cold, any kind of sickness or anything like that, because you just know everybody around you is going to give you that side eye. Like, is he got the COVID? Is he vaccinated? Is he safe? Am I going to die? And I don't want to joke about that because it's really not funny or anything. But we also have been living it for the last year and a half. So you all know what I'm talking about. If you catch like a cold, you're around fearing that everyone's going to be like very freaky about you. But anyway, when you do have a cold or something, mask up, don't touch people, etc., etc. We've been living this for a year and a half. I don't really need to explain all this. I was just annoyed because I finally, after a year and a half. The most sick I've gotten is I started to develop a little bit of a cold. I got a little bit of a sniffle, no cough or anything, just a little bit of a sniffle. And I was just annoyed. I was annoyed by that. And I thought it was funny to me that I'm annoyed that I have a sniffle despite having fantastic health for the last year and a half. So that's where I'm at. So if you do hear me sniffle a little bit during this podcast, I apologize. It's mostly taken care of already. Like, my most sniffly was like yesterday. Like, I felt like the comings on of it, like the comings on of the cold, like 2 days ago. I'm like, no, let's not do this, body. I remember this feeling. Let's not do this. And then yesterday I was more sniffly, and then today I'm already getting over it. By tomorrow it'll probably be gone entirely, like one of those 3-day like little cold things or whatever. But it's just like, no, let's not do this. No, I don't wanna go back to ever being sick by anything ever again. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Much more recently, I've been playing a few games. I just kind of want to talk about video games today. Is that cool? Can we just talk about a few video games I've been playing? That's mostly what I want to do, is just talk about some video games and just kind of catch up and just kind of like sort of decompress what I've been thinking about these games, because they are not games that I've been playing for my YouTube channel. They are not. Actually, one of them is, and then the other two are not. So I want to talk about this game called Sheltered. So that's coming up soon. I got it for free on Humble Bundle. No, I didn't. On Epic Games Store. The other two I got on Humble Bundle at some point in time. I misspoke. This first game that I'm going to talk about, Sheltered, I got for free on Epic Games. It was one of their like free games that they have every week or every 2 weeks or whatever they do. It's an older game. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it's an older. I mean, I say older. It was like 2015, 16, something like that. And I played it. Apparently, it has a sequel now, or it's coming out. I'm very bad at research. I'm a very good podcast host. I do all my research on what I'm talking about. Absolutely, for sure. But I was playing that, and I made an episode for that. So by the time you see this podcast, that episode should be out. So you can check that out at Magic Man Mo on YouTube. You can watch that episode if you want to see some footage of me playing Sheltered. The other two games that I want to talk about that I've been playing around with, and we'll talk more about them when we get to them, is Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden, which is a more recent game that came out in 2018, and Warhammer 40k Gladius Relics of War, which is a mouthful. I actually don't remember what year that came out. I feel like that one's not super old either. Hang on, I can check that out. I've got my computer pulled up. 2018 as well. So a couple more recent games, but not new. In very typical Weston fashion, I haven't played anything of like anything remotely new in a while, other than Knockout City, which we've talked about on the podcast before. I haven't played nearly as much of that game as I would like to, but I played it a little bit a couple weeks ago, and I still enjoy it a lot, but that's like the newest thing I've played in a while. Sheltered. As I choke on the word shelter, like, swallow weird. I do have my coffee. For those of you, actually, I don't think I've shown this off on the podcast. For any of my visual listeners that are watching this podcast on YouTube, I've got this cup. I'm just going to show it off. I don't think I've done it on the podcast yet. It's this beautiful, like, 30-ounce coffee mug, travel mug, tumbler type thing, whatever. Custom made by a friend of mine, Vanessa, shout out to you, for my birthday in July. Made this. It's got Magic Man Mo emblazoned on it. It's also got just my name down here on the bottom here as well. So it's marked by me all over the place. It's this super cool, like, misty, swirly red and white pattern on it that reminds me of like the red spot in Jupiter or whatever. Red spot in Jupiter, is that what it is? You know, the giant storm. Is it Jupiter? Right? Am I stupid? But it's all red, so it's like very Mars and like smoky looking, but like not smoky because it's like, I don't know, something about the texture is very reminiscent of rock. So it's just got that sort of clouds look from a planet, like something you'd see on a planet, right? Planet and storms and clouds or something. I just think it's really cool. I really like this tumbler, and I'm drinking coffee out of it. I needed to mention coffee. It's still very hot because I was going to drink out of my coffee, so I needed to mention my coffee. I'm still drinking my coffee. Good morning, everybody. I didn't say good morning, but good morning, everybody. You should be, if you're listening to this in the evening or afternoon, you're doing it wrong. This is for the morning. No. For drinking my coffee. Sorry, I sidetracked myself quite a bit just then. Sheltered, game that I'm playing on YouTube, or played for YouTube, made an episode out of it. If enough people enjoy that episode, we'll make a series out of it. It's this sort of apocalyptic survival management game. It reminds me of, I never played, I think it's called 60 Seconds. I never played that game, which is like a post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic sort of management game as well. But I played its sequel / spin-off game 60 Parsecs that takes place in space. And it's basically the same premise, just like with a different skin, basically. And the idea of that game is you get 60 seconds to collect a bunch of material, then you jump in a bunker, and then the apocalypse happens, and you have to survive in your bunker for basically as long as you can. And you can beat the game. You can survive until you manage to escape safely or something, or you can horribly die. And it's not just you, it is you and your family, which consists of like a mom and a dad and then like 2 kids. In this game, Sheltered, you get 2 adults and 2 children. You're not restricted to a mom and a dad and a boy and a girl child or anything like that. You can change their genders, but it is 2 adults and 2 children to start with, and that's your family of 4. That's your family unit. And you don't have to like grab materials before you jump into the bunker. You just find a bunker. You have access to a nuclear bunker for some reason. Actually, I'm not entirely sure. It probably, if I pull up Epic, if I read the description to you, would that be cool? Would that be cool if I just read the game description to you as it is on Epic, on the Epic Games Store? This is not sponsored by Epic, BTW. Their tagline, if that's what you might call it, is, "Sheltered is a deep and emotional survival management game. You take on the role of protecting your family members who, after a global apocalypse, have found their way to a deserted shelter." That's the sort of brief synopsis there. They have a longer sort of description. Panting, scared, the shelter airlock smashes down behind you. You wish you did not have to go outside, but you do. It would be easier to give up, but you don't. The hardship, the hunger, the thirst, the fear. You keep reminding yourself why you stay alive, why you do this. Then you hear it. "Daddy, you're back." I don't know why I'm going to critique this. They do the "Daddy, you're back" like one of your kids is talking, but then the follow-up sentence is one, there's a grammar error. "You wife's face lights up." And you open a bag full of medical supplies. That's so... I get it because I've played the game. It's 2 different characters. "Daddy, you're back." That's supposed to be one of your kids. And then they're like, "Oh, besides that, as well as that happening, your wife's face lights up." But because they immediately follow that quote, "Daddy, you're back," your wife's face lights up. I can't help but imagine that your wife's just like, Daddy, you're back." This should be rewritten. Anyway, you need not tell her how you got them. You simply enjoy your small victory in this, the harshest of times. Sheltered is a post-apocalyptic disaster management game that gives you a whole new meaning to the term nuclear family. Given a head start over the billions lost in a nuclear holocaust, you must gather as many supplies as possible en route to the concrete underground shelter that will soon become your family home for this foreseeable dreary future. I still can't get over that. "Daddy, you're back." Your wife's face lights up. So you don't call me daddy around the children. That's for later. Sorry, I enjoyed that a lot. But anyway, it's very reminiscent, the game. Do you guys remember? I don't remember what it was called. I think it was called Fallout Shelter. Do you guys remember Fallout Shelter, the mobile game that came out when Fallout 4 came out? Either when it came out or it was leading up to Fallout 4 coming out. The Fallout mobile game, Fallout Shelter, I think it was what it was called. I guess I could Google it. Hang on. Fallout Shelter. Yeah, that's what it was called, Fallout Shelter. I played it a little bit back in the day. That came out, God, when was that? 2015. Actually, wait, hold up. 2015, that's when this game came out, Sheltered. Somebody copied somebody, and I don't know who it is. This is... all the pieces are falling into place in my head right now. I'm seeing through the Matrix. Somebody copied somebody. Anyway, that was a mobile game. And this game, Sheltered, the PC game, is very similar to this mobile game that I remember playing. It's got that sort of 2D look to it, right? Where you're facing towards your sort of bunker colony, right? You've got this sort of cutaway where you can see into the sort of bunker, and it's management in the way that you have a number of supplies to keep track of: food, water, and a bunch of other different supplies and items and objects you can find throughout the wasteland, to use a Fallout term. But you also get to build your shelter, not just the rooms, but also what you have in the room. So there's different items, like you have to build your beds, your bathrooms, like the level 1 bathroom, not bathroom, it's not the room. The level 1 bathroom object is like a bucket to poop in. It's just a bucket. That's your first toilet. You can get better. You can upgrade to better, but your first was like a bucket. And you can get like a shower, and you can get like a broom to clean things with or whatever. And there's a number of different beds, etc. Where there's a workbench where you craft stuff. And there's 4 of you, and apparently, conceivably, you can go out into the wasteland and find other survivors and, I guess, recruit them to also work in your bunker as well. I never got to that point in the game. I only played it for about half an hour. So I only have a very, like, brief first impressions of this game. And it, like I said, it reminds me of that 60 seconds game where you have your family of 4, and you put them on different tasks, and they all have different skills and kind of different personalities that you get to customize yourself. I think there's a sort of scenario play. I can't remember what they called it. Like a scenario or a campaign or something like that, where they have a pre-built family for you and just kind of throw you in with that. Or you can customize it yourself and have your different characters have different stats and personalities that you pick. So I went with that one, the custom one, so I could put me in the game, of course, and I put my buddy Alex, that you guys probably have heard about on the podcast before, from Alex Duquette on YouTube, as well as my buddies TJ and Ian that I often play with on YouTube on streams. I made that our family of 4, and then I made my brother Wiley the family dog. So so you do get a pet. You do get to pick a family pet that can be like a dog, a cat, like a fish. It's something like a couple other things. I don't remember what they all are. And that provides you different bonuses as well. The neat thing about having the dog is that you can bring the dog with you on expeditions out into the wasteland looking for supplies. I, of course, made my character the smart character with, like, the intelligence. So I've got my character, like, constantly, like, scanning radio frequencies for, like, information and news and that kind of thing. And Alex, I don't remember what skills I actually gave him, but I kind of made him the sort of de facto crafter. He crafts all the stuff, builds the rooms. He's also, like, hygienic is the personality type, so he's also a neat freak. But, like, I didn't have a broom to sweep with until, like, the very end of my sort of session. So I don't know how hygiene and cleaning your bunker really comes into play, but I guess it does at some point. I didn't really get to that point, unfortunately. And then the 2 kids, Ian and TJ, they're just they're my de facto expedition crew. I just like to send the children out into the wasteland to do all of the actual work and keeping us all alive, collecting the food and stuff. And I've sent them on 2 expeditions, and both times I forgot to put them in hazmat suits before they left. So they've just been out there collecting all of the brilliant radiation out there, the sun's radiation, the Earth's radiation, the nuclear radiation. So far, no ill effects, but it's only been 2 expeditions, and they're young. They're kids. They can shake that off, surely, right? They're very stalwart. But, and of course, I sent Wiley the dog out with them to collect supplies and look for things. We investigated, like, a farmhouse, and we investigated some other place or whatever, found a number of supplies, didn't really find any people, found a box that I couldn't open because I didn't have, like, a lockpick set or something like that, and I'm like, okay, I didn't even know about that, so I couldn't take the box with me. I complained about that. It's like, well, at least take the locked box back to the bunker. We don't have to leave it here, but whatever. It was like a locked toolbox. I don't remember. It was like a toolbox. I'm like, we can carry that. We got space in our inventory to carry a toolbox. All right, just carry it. No big deal. These two children that I sent out in the wasteland, you can carry it all. You can carry it all on your backs. Come on, what's going on? That's that game, Shelter, that I've been playing. I was having fun with it. I wonder if it ever gets, because I don't know how long of a game it is. I wonder how monotonous the game would be if, I don't know, in terms of, like, events. Like, most of the events that we're going to have, I think, happen through the radio in terms of things happening out in the wasteland or encounters that you have in the wasteland. There's combat that can happen. I never saw any of it. I'm curious to know how monotonous the base building is versus how robust it is, because I didn't get very far. I started building a room to actually put my bathroom and my shower, my cleaning supplies into. I started building a specific room for that. I was going to start building a second room for a bedroom specifically, and didn't really get that far. So I started building. It's very resource intensive. I'm going to need a lot more expeditions to make that happen. And of course, you have to manage everybody's tiredness and how hungry and sleepy they are. It all happens like in real time. It's not turn-based or whatever. It's happening in real time. So you just keep managing them. You can pause it. You can hit pause and start again. You can speed time up, that kind of thing. So it all kind of happens in real time, but you can control time a little bit and have people come and go as they have their energy back, which is different from like 60 seconds or 60 parsecs, where you have one day, you tell everyone what they're going to do for that day, and then you go to the next day. This one happens in real time. I made it through 2 full days, which I got 2 expeditions in those 2 days, which was kind of neat. So I feel like I was pretty efficient, considering I didn't pause the game ever. I just let it run, and I was just telling people what to do and was learning along the way. It seemed really easy to pick up and get into. The one thing is that sometimes picking out items in the background of your bunker, they're kind of hard to see. I think they should be like highlighted a little bit. For a while, I couldn't figure out how to feed my family because I couldn't find the food in my bunker. I knew it was in my inventory because if I sent people on expeditions, I could send them with food. So I knew I had food, but when I was in my bunker and I went to my inventory, there was no food. And I didn't know why. And it turns out, I was just blind, above my inventory, which is this box on the ground, there's a shelf. And on the shelf are these cans of food. And I needed to click on the shelf. And I just didn't realize that is what it is. Because it's kind of like that kind of pixel-y art style. I'm going to look at it again. I would say pixel art style. It's that sort of smudged pixel art style, if you know what I mean. It's very gritty. You'd have to look up like a screenshot of it to know what I'm talking about. It's that sort of smudged post-apocalyptic zombie pixel game look to it. And I don't know if it's just pixels, but the color palette reminds me of a very specific kind of game. Because when I think pixel art, I don't usually think of this style of game. I think like old Zelda, or I think like, I don't know, just kind of like old Zelda style games like that, like much more blockier or something like that. This one doesn't look very blocky. It's like smudged pixels. You have to tell me. You'll have to tell me. Look at a screenshot of this game and tell me smudged pixels. I think should be a look. I think that should be a description of a look of a very specific kind of pixel art game. But it's got that look to it. So it's like kind of simpler and dumbed down a bit. Everything's clear what it is when you look at it for the most part. But it's just that like taking it all in and being like, oh, that's a can of soup, and not just like debris, I think is the biggest thing for me. Is like what in my bunker is just background nothing, right? Just background art, whatever, versus, oh, that's an item I can click on. Oh, okay. Is a little unclear. I think you play more of it, you get used to it or whatever. But at first shake, that was sort of my take on it. That's Shelter. You can check out my video for it on Magic Man Mo on YouTube. Check that out. The next game I want to talk about today, though, not to spend too much time on just one game. I got a couple games I want to talk about. We got a long episode ahead of us, so I got a little bit of time. I'll take a little sippy sip of my coffee. I hope you have some coffee. You guys like coffee? How do you like your coffee? I like my coffee black. I'm just rolling with, it's nothing fancy. It's just that Folgers Black Silk coffee. I like a dark roast. And the Black Silk title is their dark roast coffee. I don't know if the other roasts have a name. Because like Folgers, this is not sponsored, obviously. That would be wild. Wouldn't that be buck wild? Sponsored by Folgers. Anyway, they have like medium roasts and light roasts, but I don't think they have names, right? I think it's just Folgers light roast or Folgers medium roast. But like the dark roast is specifically Black Silk. I don't know why that is. It stands out in my mind. Recommend me a coffee. Hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @WestonHasty. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know, what's your favorite brand of coffee? I'll drink it. I'll critique it. I'll criticize your coffee. If I can't get to it at my local grocery store or Walmart or something, I'll order it online. I'll critique your coffee. I'll tell you your taste is terrible. If anybody's got terrible taste in coffee, it's probably me. Anyway, second game I want to talk about. I've been having this real itch and urge to play basically XCOM 2, but I've beaten XCOM 2. We talked about this on the podcast a while ago, actually. But I've been wanting to play it, but I don't really want to play it because I've beaten it. Like, I've seen everything it has to offer outside of, like, adding a bunch of mods, which there are. There are a ton of mods for XCOM 2. There's, like, the Long War mod, too, which is, like, a complete, like, game overhaul and changes a ton of stuff, which would probably be fun. But I've played a lot of XCOM. I've played a lot of XCOM 2, and I'm ready for something different. But I wanted something like that. I wanted something like that experience. And I've had this game sitting around in my library for a while that I picked up, I think, from Humble Bundle. Which, by the way, I should have, unless the link isn't working properly for some reason. In the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening to it or watching it from, there should be a link. I have a Humble Bundle link, affiliate link. If you would like to sign up for the monthly Humble Bundle subscription service, I have an affiliate link there, and you can do so, get some really, really cheap games every month. I mean, they're like value games, right? Like $20, $30, $40, $50 games or whatever. You get a bundle of like, depending on what subscription you sign up for, between like 8 and 12 of those games a month for like super cheap, like $15 a month or something like that. That's like $300 worth of games for $15, something like that. Whatever. It varies month to month. But anyway, I have a link for that down below. You can use that. If you use my link, help support my me. You help support the podcast. And as well as charity. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Now that I've thrown it out there, back to Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is this game that I picked up on a Humble Bundle sale at some point in time. I don't even know if it was from the monthly subscription or not. I don't remember which one I got this one from, but it very much has that look of an XCOM game to it. The sort of marketing, like, cover image? Is that what it would be called? That I remember seeing this sort of cover image of it. And it's this look of these two characters. It's like a duck character and a pig character looking down screen, down field. That's not the word I'm looking for, but downfield or whatever. And you can see sort of like an enemy base, and there's this sort of enemy soldier guy with a gun walking by, kind of like looking around. Very reminiscent of XCOM 2, which had a very similar cover image of like a ranger or whatever peering around a corner, and there's an Advent soldier down looking back, or whatever. So it very much immediately struck me when I saw this game. Immediately struck me as, okay, this game is trying to look like XCOM 2. And I looked into it, and yeah, it looks like it plays like a tactical tactical strategy RPG type game, whatever. Party-based tactics game, that sort of thing. And I got really excited. It's based in a post-apocalypse. I know, between that and Sheltered, we have a bit of an apocalyptic theme going on here. It's a post-apocalyptic game set after the fall of humanity as we know it. Humans are still around, but it's a very different world that they live in today. And at first, I thought everybody on the world now are these sort of animal-human hybrids, but apparently only some people are. And apparently, in the game, unless that becomes clearer later, we don't really know where the mutant hybrids come from, as far as we know. But we control a party of those hybrids. Specifically, this pig character and this duck character. I can't remember the pig's name for the life of me now. I want to say it's Boris. I don't know if that's true. I don't remember his name whatsoever. The duck character is super easy to remember. His name is Dux. D-U-X. Dux. That's really easy to remember. The pig character, I don't remember. It's like Boris or something. I don't remember his name. You start off as these two, and they're a part of this sort of mercenary group, kind of. There are these different teams that exist on the Ark. The Ark is where humanity continues to exist away from the dangers of the Zone. The Zone is basically the rest of the world that has been destroyed in the post-apocalypse, basically. It was like a nuclear apocalypse, but there were other apocalypses happening. There was like a plague and flooding, because it kind of rolled in all of the apocalypses in one into this super apocalypse, right? There's the global warming, so of course flooding. There was a plague. This game came out in 2018, so they called the COVID thing. Except the plague in Mutant Year Zero was closer to like Ebola or something. You'd bleed out the ears and die or something like that. Sounds horrifying. And then, of course, eventually the bombs dropped and killed off everybody. And governments collapsed and that kind of thing. That's probably where the mutants come from, is some sort of nuclear mutation, genetics, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how far into the future this game's supposed to take place. I was under the impression when I got this game that it's like that year, right? Like the apocalypse just happened because it's Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden. Don't know where that name really comes from because the characters in the game refer to the pre-apocalypse era as the Ancients. They refer to us people today as the Ancients. An ancient kind of implies a long time has passed, but it kind of suffers from that Fallout vibe where if you've ever played like Fallout 4, right? Where it takes place 200 years after the apocalypse, but some things you find throughout the world feel like the apocalypse just happened. Like things that are undisturbed in the wasteland that definitely should have been disturbed in the 200 years that have passed. And like society is not as far along in some areas as it should be in 200 years, etc. Like there's some like weirdness in Fallout. If you've ever played Fallout, and something like in the back of your mind, you're like, some things don't feel like it's been that long, but it's supposed to have been that long. Same thing in Mutant Year Zero. Like the humans live on this like elevator. They call it an elevator. It doesn't look anything like a grain elevator to me, so I don't know what it's supposed to be an elevator for, but it's like a grain elevator or something. This contraption, this little mini city in the sky held up by metal scaffolding and that kind of thing. It's very ramshackle. They live up there. It doesn't seem super huge. They really only know the Ark. They're still like exploring the surrounding area. They still find the zone around it to be very dangerous. And they act like this apocalypse thing is relatively recent. The elder that lives in the Ark, I'm picking up the vibe, is supposed to have been an ancient human that like lived back in near apocalypse times at the very least. Like when you go to his office, he's got like blood packs and stuff hooked up to him, like he's just surviving or something like that. He doesn't look super elderly though. He actually looks like a 60-year-old man, like a 60-year-old, somebody's 60-year-old grandpa or something like that. But again, I don't know how far along the miracles of medicine are in this universe. I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but he's supposed to know all these things about how things were back in the day. So it's super weird because if modern times were ancient times to these people, how old would this guy have to be, and how far along is technology? And like, I'm just very confused about the world building. Because it feels like it just happened, the apocalypse, because they're still scavenging for supplies. Like, no one's farming supplies. They're scavenging, right? So anyway, it's just very strange to me. So I can't figure out when this game takes place in the grand scheme of things. But that's just world building stuff. The gameplay itself, I was very surprised that it's not just like XCOM where you have like management of your party and then also like the combat encounters. You also have it's like a third-person control over your party as you explore the area, and there's like stealth. There's like a stealth mechanic in the game, and you can actually separate enemies away from groups and attack just them at a time in a turn-based fashion. Whenever you're in combat, it's turn-based, and you can separate enemies from the group and try to take out them stealthily. And then if you do that, you leave combat, you go back into your sort of stealth or mode and move around. So stealth plays a much larger part of this game than I expected it to. Because XCOM 2 had like concealment and stealth in it as well, but it was all a part of the combat encounter. It wasn't something that was really meant to last the entirety of the encounter. It was more of a way to get a one-up on an encounter. And in many ways, Mutant Year Zero is the same way, but the stealth aspect takes place in real time as opposed to turn-based. So it's a very different vibe, very different feel, and I wasn't sure how I feel about that. It's not bad. It's just different than what I was expecting. There's also a level of exploration in the game I wasn't expecting, where you can explore an environment and collect scraps and resources for upgrading your items and gear and weapons and stuff later at the Ark. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to have stealth and exploration in this game. I just wanted to play a game that was kind of like XCOM 2 or even XCOM Chimera Squad, just mostly like that turn-based strategy combat game. So if you're looking for something that kind of melds that XCOM vibe, also of a kind of open world. It's not super open world. Every area is its own area, and you travel between those areas through like loading screens. They're very fast, but like you have one area, then you move to another area, you have another area, etc. So it's not like super open world, but it's kind of got that exploration element to it. Of course, I really struggled with this game. It has 3 difficulties, like easy, medium, and hard. Actually, it was like medium, hard, and very hard. Yeah, it was medium, hard, and very hard. And the descriptions to them really got me off. Like the medium difficulty was for people new to tactical games. Like just new to tactical games. I'm like, okay. And then hard was like for people experienced with tactical games and then some other stuff. But pretty much even. The very hard, I had to play it on very hard. I had to play this on very hard because the first line in the very hard difficulty description is the intended way to play. And I'm like, oh, come on. You can't make the normal difficulty the hardest difficulty to choose. Really? The intended way? Okay, if this is how it's intended, then I'm going to play it on very hard. And that's what I did, and it's very hard. It's very hard. It's very unforgiving. You take a lot of damage when you get shot, and especially early game, where you only have the 2 party members, the duck and the pig. Later, you kind of meet this sort of stealth human girl that I don't know if she's supposed to be part chameleon. She's got some skin thing she can do, and I don't know all her mutations. I kind of just met her by the time I got to the end of my session that I was playing. And my session ended abruptly, and we'll get to that point, because when I was choosing difficulties, I couldn't help myself. I was like, well, if we're going to play very hard, I might as well tick that little box underneath that says, like, I don't remember what they call it, but basically Iron Man mode. So of course I had to be very hard. Iron Man mode, which means permadeath for any characters that die, and it saves the game after every single turn. It saves often, so you can't like go back. You can't save scum, and you can't manual save. No manual saves, only auto saves. Don't know why I did this to myself. I've never played this game before, and that's the way I decided to play it, was on very hard with permadeath and no takesies backsies. That's what we did. So, you probably know where this is going a little bit already. I was playing this game. It didn't quite tickle the same itch for me as XCOM does, but it's got a lot going for it in a similar manner, coming from, I think, presumably a smaller studio. I don't remember who made this game. I can look it up. The developer is a group called The Bearded Ladies. So there you go. I've never heard of them. I don't know if they have any other games. I'm going to find out. Oh, heck, did they make... Oh, no. They must be a part of Funcom. I'm on their Steam page. I clicked on The Bearded Ladies, and it brought me to a group called Funcom. So I don't know. They must be a subgroup of a larger group I'm not familiar with. So there you go. I can't tell you any more about what the Bearded Ladies have done without doing more research. There you go. I told you nothing. Very well researched. Very good podcast host. Anyway. Actually, if I even read you the description, the Steam description of this game, I know I told you I got this game on Humble Bundle, but I just happen to have Steam open. The Steam description is a tactical game combining the turn-based combat of XCOM with story, exploration, stealth, and strategy. Take control of a team of mutants navigating a post-human Earth. Created by a team including former Hitman leads and the designer of Payday. Now, that's just buzzwords. A team including former Hitman leads doesn't mean a lot, and the designer of Payday, I don't know what that means in the actual like game development world, right? Like I don't know what that designer did for the game. That's just marketing to make it sound like, oh, I've seen Hitman, oh, I've seen Payday, oh, those are good games. This will be a good game too. That's just marketing nonsense. But anyway, the game's not bad. But yeah, it does merge those different sort of play styles to them. It's very hard. It's very unforgiving at the very hard difficulty, where you can probably take 2 hits. You have enough health to take 2 hits from any given enemy, and when you only start with a party size of 2, you're often outnumbered there's like at least 2 enemies, often 3 or 4 or 5. And they really try to push you to stealth around, scope out enemies' movements, and try to pick enemies off like little by little, one at a time, which for the most part I could do just fine. One of the things that drove me nuts about the game is the range of your weaponry seems extremely small. Like, I found myself often at a point where I was out of range to use my pig character's scatter gun, shotgun weapon. It has like a range of like 8 tiles or something, and I just felt like I was always out of range. Or moving into range was going to put me into grave danger because the cover system that the game uses, I think, is a lot more simplified compared to XCOM's. There were a lot fewer modifiers I ever saw going on in terms of like elevation and cover and that sort of thing. You get basically... I don't even remember if the weapons had accuracy or not, but for the most part, if you were in small cover, that was like a 25% reduction in your chance of being shot. Yes, I said that right. Or if you were in tall cover, you would get 75% reduction. And those were the 2 biggest sort of factors. Otherwise, if you were out in the open, you were basically guaranteed to be hit. Basically guaranteed to be hit. And I try to make sure I was always in cover, but it was always so hard to get into cover and also be within range of attacking somebody. And same thing with the enemy. So there was a lot of like Overwatch happening where people didn't really want to move in closer to you. They wanted you to move in closer to them, and you don't really want to get closer to them, so you're hoping they'll move closer to you. It's just, I don't know, it felt like a really close encountered style gameplay that I found a little jarring compared to XCOM, where you could take shots at people further away, just your chance of hitting was very low. In this game, if you're out of range, you're out of range, period, and just end of it. If someone's beyond 8 tiles from you, you can't hit them. If they're within 8 tiles, there's no... I don't think I noticed a difference where, like, with the shotgun, if it was 1 tile away from you, you get increased chance to hit, versus literally on the literal edge of 8 tiles, you'd have a less chance. I don't remember there being a lot of variability, which on the one hand makes it a lot simpler to keep track of. But on the other hand, also, if you're looking for that in-depth, robust, like crunching every percentage point possible, that style of gameplay, at least in the early game that I played through, I didn't really get a lot of that. I did end up dying. We TPK'd and we got wildly overwhelmed shortly after getting my 3rd character in the game, that sort of woman that's kind of like part chameleon or something. We went into an encounter. I was trying to pick off people quietly, but we got to the point where all the enemies had so much health that I just couldn't take them out before we'd get noticed, basically. We were trying to take out somebody who was observing the area on top of this bus. And I got all 3 of my characters close to them without being spotted. And I went to combat. All 3 of my characters, I had gotten silenced weapons at that point. And we all took a shot at this person. I'm like, if we all hit... they'll die, no one will notice, and we'll be good. 1 person missed, the other 2 hit. So what ended up happening is that bus person survived, sounded the alarm. There was another enemy close by that was, I don't remember what they were called, shamans? I think it was a shaman, some zone shaman, that blew on a tuba or something and just literally summoned more enemies onto the battlefield. I had heard about shamans. I heard that they alert enemies to your position. I didn't realize that meant they just literally summoned new enemies to the area. I was like, oh, so now I have 3 characters and there are 8 enemies for me to fight. This is not going to be good. And in like 1 round of combat, they'd already knocked down my duck character, who I managed to revive, but I didn't have very many medic packs, health kits. Because there's no healing in between combats on very hard. You have to use health packs yourself manually to heal. And I'd already burned through basically all of I had 1 left at that point, and they're expensive back at the Ark. So I was in trouble. I'd already downed a party member, healed them, but now I don't have any health packs, and we're already outnumbered. It was going very poorly, and slowly, turn after anguishing turn, I'm throwing smoke bombs. I'm trying to like cover fire, take cover, trying to pick out the weakest enemies. There's too many of them. Got surrounded. TPK. They killed. Total party kill. Game over. couldn't reload a save. The game was just over. I had dumped a couple hours into this game at this point, a couple or a few hours, maybe like 2, 3, 4 hours or something into this game, playing the story, exploring, check out these environments. I would say, if you play this game, I think it's got potential. I think it's fun. I think it's a much more compact experience compared to XCOM. I don't think it's trying to do nearly as much, but the world is at least interesting. If you like the idea of XCOM combat, but with exploration and stealth, which sounds weird to me personally, because I wasn't expecting that or looking for that. But if that sounds cool to you, I think this game's got potential and you should totally check it out. But don't play it on very hard, or if you do, don't start the game on Iron Man mode. Maybe say that as a challenge for you, maybe as a second playthrough or something like that. That's probably all I really want to cover for that game. It's got some other stuff. It's got mutations for upgrading your characters. I don't know how many characters in the game you can unlock or how big your party size can get. I only got to 3 before I got total party kill and died. So that was my experience with Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden. That's something to sort of totally check out. This other game I've been playing. I want to talk about this other game as well. I had kind of a busy week for just playing games on my own. I played this game, Warhammer 40,000 Gladius. I heard someone call it Gladius the other day. I was looking up someone else playing it on YouTube for like tips and tricks or whatever, and they call it Gladius. I'm going to keep calling it Gladius. So if that's wrong, you're just going to have to deal with that. Warhammer 40,000 Gladius, Relics of War. I've only ever played one other Warhammer 40k game before. I've never played the tabletop game. For those of you familiar with Warhammer 40k, you know all about this. If you're not familiar, Warhammer 40k is originally a tabletop game, kind of like Dungeons & Dragons. But there's also video games of Warhammer 40k, and I've only played one before, and that was Mechanicus, Warhammer 40k Mechanicus, which, talking about XCOM-style games, is a game that has that XCOM 2 style of gameplay with turn-based, tactics-based combat. And I found that game really fun to play myself because it didn't have that world exploration thing like Mutant Year Zero did. Instead, it was very like you had your management for your parties and sort of crafting items and stuff like that in your hub, in your sort of headquarters hub. You could like make some decisions there and talk to people and manage your party. But then when you went onto the planet, which I think must have been called Mechanicus or something. I don't remember what the name of the planet was that we were exploring. It's this ancient tomb world of the Necrons race, which is this robot people. Just to really oversimplify it, right? We were on this tomb world and we were exploring it. And there's a number of different endings, I think, to that game, depending on sort of about like how you go about progressing in the game. Point is, there were basically 2 gameplay elements. One, which is this sort of map where you decide where to go in directing your squad deeper into the tomb. And that map could lead you to either like items, it could lead you to encounters, or it could lead you to like scenarios. In these scenarios, you could have like 3 or 4 different choices of how to respond to a thing that happened. Like you enter a room and the doors slam shut and there's this relic on the temple. Do you A, grab the relic, B, look for a way out, C, do a dance? You know, that sort of thing. If you've ever played like the game that jumps out to me is Slay the Spire. If you've ever played Slay the Spire, you know how there's that sort of map that rolls out and you can choose your path, and along the way there's different items, shops, and then encounters and that sort of thing. It's like that, but in Warhammer 40k style. It's got that map style, and then when you go into encounters, the fighting is like XCOM, where you deploy your squad, turn-based, etc. It's great. I had a lot of fun with that one. That's the only Warhammer game I've ever played. This one, Warhammer 40k Gladius, nothing like that. Nothing like that, actually. It's a lot more like Civilization. Like Civilization 5 or 6 or something like that, right? And it's a 4X game. I forget what the X's stand for in 4X. 4X games are like explore, expand, exterminate, extinguish. I can't think of it. I can never think of the 4. I can always think of 3. Expand, explore, exterminate, exist. No, I don't remember. I don't remember. Actually, I can look it up. I can tell you this because I've got it pulled up, or I can have it pulled up here in a sec. I remember somewhere. Exploit, that's what it is. Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. That's what 4X means. If you ever see the 4X as a game description, as a genre for a game, that's what those 4X's mean. In civilizations like that, you explore the world, you expand your nation, you exploit its resources, and you exterminate your enemies. Warhammer Gladius is very like Civilization, except that there's no diplomacy. There's no diplomacy whatsoever. It's all war and combat. Whereas like in Civilization, you can like be peaceful. You can do diplomatic actions with other nations. You can like explore sciences and culture and blah, blah, blah. In the Warhammer universe, no, everybody's your enemy. Everybody's your enemy. There was no chance at diplomacy. It does not happen. So you plop down with a city. You can choose from a number of different races. You can be the Space Marines. You can be the Necrons. You can be the Orcs. Or you can be the, what's the other human one? The Armada, the military Arcanum or something like that. I don't remember what they're called. It's just basically humans as well, which should be on the same side as the Space Marines, but their playstyle is very different. And if you play the game and any of the AI are fellow, say you chose Space Marines. If you encounter other humans, that other human faction, you just get a message about how like you try to open up communication and they're like heretics or something like that, and you're not on the same side. You should be, but you're not. Same thing if you encounter like other Space Marines. It's like, oh, maybe they are a different chapter and they're like heretics. If you're a Space Marine, basically anybody that should be on your side but isn't, they're a heretic. So I try to play as the human one that isn't the Space Marines, the one with the name that I don't remember now. I try to play as them because they seemed like the most relatable in terms of technology. You can read about their different abilities throughout the game, and they're the ones that have like access to tanks and different infantry units that are just a lot more human and a lot more recognizable to me. I thought, okay, that'd be kind of fun. The only downside is that there's this little note when you're choosing that faction that their beginning, how'd they describe it? Your beginning sort of situation is hard. So apparently how you begin the game, like getting set up and getting your resources rolling, like how you get started in the game, the human one is the hardest. The Space Marines and the Necrons are the easiest, and then the Orcs are somewhere in between, or kind of medium as far as startup. So I did choose the race with the hardest startup, but I figured I'm familiar with like Civ. I've played the crap out of Civ 5. I've played a little bit of other 4X games before as well. I like them. I can pick them up pretty quick. I'll be all right. It's just starting difficulty. It's not how the whole game will be. I didn't choose difficult for the game. My game difficulty was medium, whatever it was, the normal one. I don't remember what it's called, but I just chose the normal difficulty. I just figured, okay, the start will be a little tricky. No big deal. I thought I was doing really well with the start. I had a huge expanse of land that wasn't being competed with. I didn't have any competition from the other 4 AI players that I had on the map at the time. Only the neutral factions, which if you've played Civ, like barbarians are neutral, right? And in Gladius, you have like different cultists that are neutral, different planet wildlife. Kroot hounds, for example, is one of them. They're neutral, but they're all hostile. They just don't belong to a faction, but they're all hostile. You can attack them. So besides that, I was doing really well and expanding, and I thought I was doing really well in the game until at some point I finally did meet the other AI players, and I got into a bit of a fight with one of them, and then I discovered another one, and I got in a bit of a fight with them, and they were getting their butts handed by the Necrons. Excuse me. I was fighting the Necrons. They were getting their butts handed to them by some Space Marines, and together we destroyed the Necrons, but then those Space Marines kept going and came after me, and they were pushing me way back, and these other Space Marines that I discovered were way farther ahead in like science and technology than I was, and they didn't have as big a military force, but what they did have was kicking my butt, and they just slowly pushed me back, And there's a quest system in the game. There's a quest system that's kind of plays like a story mode, and you can disable it if you don't want to have anything to do with that. If you want to have just sort of the civilization experience and just go down and like exterminate everybody, and that's the game. But if you want to, there's sort of a story mode quest system. They give you quests and objectives in the form of these different chapters. And each chapter, if you complete all the objectives, you get a reward, and it advances to the next chapter. As it so happened, while I was being absolutely destroyed by these two Space Marine factions, getting my butt handed to me, I managed to get to chapter 6 of my quest, which maybe I shouldn't have been trying to beat those quests at the time. I didn't realize how intense they were going to get. Actually, if I step back, chapter 5 was I got invaded by a bunch of freaking enslavers, which are these telepathic alien species that captures your units and turns them against you. So whatever units I had to fight the Space Marines were turning against me to fight with the enslavers, so I was losing units left and right. I did manage to fight back the enslavers, which activated chapter 6, and I got invaded by a bunch of giant robots by this crazy fanatic friggin' traitor to my faction. So I was being attacked by two factions of Space Marines, technically my own faction of people with giant robots. I was losing cities left and right. I had just gotten like 3 cities, I think. 4 cities. I had just gotten to 4 cities, and my most recent 2 went down quick, and then the second one that I found, it held its ground for as long as it could, and we got to my capital city, and I'm just being hounded on all sides, and I'm like, I'm just hitting the next turn button because all my units are dead at this point. I'm just hitting next turn until I lose, until eventually I did, and I was destroyed, and I was just utterly crushed. I'm like, wow, that sucked. I was having fun all the way up until all of a sudden, absolutely destroyed by just everything in the game. Although it was still really compelling. I did start up a second game on that one, playing as the Necrons. I thought the Necrons would be kind of fun to play as. I was looking at some of their stuff, and I'm like, okay, this might be kind of fun. And they work a little bit different. They don't have to grow food for their population because they're robot people, but they do consume a lot of ore, and they take up a lot of energy. So you kind of have to like play with those 2 different resources. And they're stronger units than the humans, but they're more expensive units than the humans. And I'm doing relatively okay with them right now. I'm in the middle. I haven't finished that campaign yet. I'm kind of in the middle of it. On my left side of the map, I've got, on the west, I should say, I know there's an orc faction, but the only way they can get to me and I can get to them is this like 2-tile space of land that's also covered in, what's it called, wild vine or something like that. And if you end your turn on a wild vine, you take damage. So usually people try not to end their turn on it, and it's rough terrain. So like it takes like all of your movement to get past that tile. So you kind of have to stand on it to get through this 2 tiles of land. So neither one of us are really crossing that bridge. So I've got a couple units over there just stationed to keep an eye out for any activity, for any movement, in case the orcs get a little frisky. But we're just kind of hanging out over there. I'm going to try to plop a city over there as like a forward base of operations. But to my north, I discovered some Space Marines, and not Space Marines, other Necrons, and another Necron faction. So we're at war with them right now, and they're, I think they have more units than me, and I think we're fairly even on tech. So it's kind of stagnated right now. We're at a stalemate, but I'm quickly losing it because I'm closer, like where I have my forces are closer to their cities than mine. So to reinforce all my units to send them north takes me longer than it takes them to reinforce their units. So I'm quickly losing, and I need to fall back, but I don't want to because there's good resources up there. I've got some outposts giving me special abilities and stuff. It's a lot of fun. I'm having fun with it. I think I'm gonna get my butt kicked again on that playthrough because I already see the tears. I already see the tears where if I lose this ground, they're gonna keep coming, and I'm not gonna be able to stop them, and I'm just gonna be crushed. So it's got a much faster pace than like a game like Civilization. In a game like Civilization, I can usually sit back and like collect my technology and get ahead in a lot of different ways, and then just show up and crush my enemies. Whereas in Gladius, because none of the sort of diplomacy exists and everybody's all war, everyone's moving very quickly to destroy everybody. There's no sitting back and waiting and like kind of biding your time. It's like, oh, I discovered an enemy. They must die now. So it's a bit faster paced, and I don't think I'm managing maybe my resources quite properly, and maybe I'm not being as efficient in some areas to get the most out of my cities or my units or whatever. Probably it is turn-based like Civ, so it's not like I'm too slow in real time, just slow in developing my cities, maybe making decisions too slow or something like that. But that's been a lot of fun as well. Those are 3 different games that if you feel so inclined, you could totally check out. Gives you a sense of the type of games maybe I'm into playing here lately. I don't know how much more of Mutant Year Zero I plan on playing soon, or I feel like I need to jump back into Warhammer and finish that campaign and see how it goes. And Sheltered, like I said, I made a YouTube video of Sheltered, so if people really like that video, I'll play more of it, probably on stream or more videos, so I might end up playing more of that. Next time we have a podcast, perhaps I'll have some more games to talk about or other stuff to talk about. Let me know what you'd like to hear about. If you have any questions or comments or anything to add to the podcast, you can do so on Twitter at Weston Hasty. Hit me up, shoot me a tweet. You can use the hashtag Hasty Podcast to help me look for your tweets later in case I lose them. I can look up hashtags. You can use the hashtag Hasty Podcast, or tweet at me at Weston Hasty, and I will see your comments and such. You can support the show financially if you would so like to, going to patreon.com/Weston Hasty. That's my Patreon, where you can support me by throwing me $1 or $2 a month if you would so desire. That's going to do it for today's podcast. You've been listening to a Hasty Podcast. I've been Weston Hasty. Check out my YouTube. That's going to be my ending thing. Check out my YouTube, youtube.com/MagicMenmo. That's it. I'm going to head out of here. Go play some games. I'm out of here. Peace. Bye. Bye.